Good evening. I call to order the Gladstone City Council special meeting for Tuesday, February 25th, 2025. It's 5:31 p.m. This meeting is being held in person and on the Zoom platform. And we are accepting public comment on the agenda item only, resolution number 1241. Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Huckabee.
Present.
Counselor Mitchell.
Present.
Counselor Blaug.
Present.
Counselor Levante.
Present.
Counselor Roberts.
Present.
Counselor Garlington.
Present.
Mayor Milch.
Present. Please stand for the flag salute. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, the only item on our agenda tonight is a resolution requesting voter authorization for the potential sale or lease of the old library property at 135 East Dartmouth Street. Staff, will you present?
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I know you're aware of the background and how we got to tonight, but I'm going to go through the staff report for our residents. The City Council discussed this property at the February 11th, 2025 council meeting. After that discussion, you directed staff to prepare a resolution to refer to the voters at the May 2025 election the question as to whether or not the City of Gladstone can sell or lease the old library property located at 525 Portland Avenue. The new library is open. The property at 135 East Dartmouth, that is the property that we're talking about tonight. It's approximately 9,000 square feet. It is zoned C2 Community Commercial District, which means that there are multiple options on the property that can be used in the future. The City of Gladstone has charter provisions requiring voter approval before the sale or lease of any city-owned property with a park designation that is allowed. Because a park is allowed outright at this location, the city must refer the sale or lease of the property to the voters. I want to be clear that the City Council has not decided what to do with that property, but we wanted the flexibility to have the option of selling it or leasing it should we get a potential developer for that. So if the council approves the resolution tonight, staff will publish the notice of the receipt of the ballot title, which notifies the public that the time period to challenge the ballot title has begun. Once the challenge period is over, and if there are no challenges, the city will file the SEL 802 with the county to formally place the measure on the May ballot. Staff also will be doing an intentional communication plan for the public, which will include social media, website content, and direct flyers to register voters. So what you have in your packet is prepared by the city attorney, and we have to be very careful about word limits for certain areas. As you will see, the ballot title caption can only be 10 words, and currently it is at 9. The question can only be 20 words, and currently we have it at 20 words. And then the summary can be 175 words, which we're currently at 175. The explanatory statement is at 500 words, and currently there are 422. Also wanted to be very clear with the public that the City Council will have a community input session before we sell or lease the property and engage them in understanding what they would like to see on that lot. So you have a little flexibility if you want to do some wordsmithing. I wouldn't recommend that just because it has been approved by the city attorney, but we can certainly have that conversation. And if you have any questions for the city attorney and I, we'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Let me thank you and the city attorney for doing the wordsmithing that's been done thus far for us, because getting things down to those concise word limits is a challenge. And as you say, we maybe have a little flexibility of making changes, but I, for one, trust what you've done so far. But counselors may see something that is missing from this or needs clarification. So first of all, is there any discussion, questions from council about the reason we're doing this now or the need for this? I engage in a conversation with a resident on social media who asked several questions about, well, if it's required, why do you need council approval? And what it really is about tonight is kind of the timing of it. Should we go ahead and seek that approval before we know what we're going to do? Or should we wait until after we think we know what we're going to do to get the approval required? If we do that, we may miss out on an opportunity because the timing is such. If we vote no on this tonight, and on March 1st, someone says, boy, I'd really like to buy that property. And we say, well, we have to get voter approval. We missed our deadline for May. We'll have to get it in November. We'll let you know sometime in early December whether it passed or not. That might not cut it with a potential buyer. And if the city, if we take this to the public and the public says, we'd really like, another city building there, maybe a recreation center for children's activities right near the library, then it would remain city property. We wouldn't need to sell it at all. We would have wasted the money on a ballot measure. So we've got a lot of pros and cons for this decision. And I'll just let council weigh in on what you think are the pros and cons that are guiding the way you would like to act. And then we can accept a motion and take some action. Anybody? Go ahead.
Sure, Councilor Levante. And I guess just so I can be clear, if so the way it is now, we can't do anything with that building.
You cannot sell or lease it. So if somebody was to come to me or let's say our economic development coordinator and say, hey, I'd like to buy that building for $1 million.
Mhm.
We could maybe have an executive session to talk about that, but we could not sell it or lease it. We would have to tell them that we have to get voter approval to do that. Timing sometimes for developers or buyers, maybe, well, we're going to go someplace else. So it really is just another tool to have the flexibility if that happens. We don't know if it's going to happen. Like the mayor said, you may want it to be a public plaza there. We've got a lot of work to still do to engage the community. You guys gave us direction to move this forward, which is what we've brought to you tonight. So really, we're just looking for a motion or approval to move it towards the ballot.
So I guess my question, so what can we do with the building now? What could we do? Like, because I know there's some issues with, is it safe and all that?
Yeah, we would have to go in and do some remediation, but it would have to be for city purposes only. We couldn't even lease it to a nonprofit or anything like that without voter approval. So unless the city has some idea of using that for another purpose, which, to be clear, for many years, we've told the public that we need a new library because that building is not habitable. So I would not recommend putting any city employees back into that building as is.
Is the city going to fund some kind of an inspection of that building to determine if there's asbestos or lead paint or a bad roof or any of that?
Yeah, we just received an inspection. There is asbestos in there. There is lead. Does it rise to the level of where the building needs to be torn down? Probably not. It could be remediated. So if there was a potential buyer, we would provide them that information and they could determine if they wanted to invest in doing that work in the building. CIS has not provided insurance on the structural integrity of that building because the ceiling is sinking in for some time. So they have only provided insurance on the actual property, the ground there.
Okay, that's helpful to know. The other potential downside, as I see it, is if we go to the public without a real plan for what it's using, what's going to be used for, and just say we're seeking approval to be able to sell it, then some people might say, well, I don't know what, if I don't know what's going to happen to it after the sale, I don't want to approve the sale. Most of the other times we've asked about permission to sell, like we needed to get permission to be able to lease the old City Hall building to the county for the new library. Well, because we knew what was going to be there, it was easier to get that voter approval, I think, back in 2018. But, the public may want to buy a pig in a poke is what they're, might feel like that. So that's just a potential downside. Other comments? Councilor Garlington.
So I like all the writing except one line on here. It says, at this time, there are no specific redevelopment plans for the property. I think there's a lot of time between now and the day that we actually vote, and a lot of things could come up between now and then. And I feel like if something did come up and we were talking about it, I don't want to be called liars because the first time some people ever saw this verbiage was the day they opened their ballot book to mark yes or no. So if Chad's not concerned about it,
I would not recommend that we entertain any redevelopment plans until after the ballot measure. If this is the direction the council is going, our focus then is to educate the voters on what exactly they're voting on. And we would let any potential buyers or interested parties know we got to get through this May election first.
okay, so let me hear you say this. Okay, so you're saying that we are not going to talk to anyone about doing anything with this building until May after the election?
We would have to inform them that we need to get voter approval before we could entertain any type of options.
Okay. I just didn't want, we're trying to mitigate that whole rumor mill thing. And if something should come up, this line right here could potentially make it look like we were talking behind the scenes when we shouldn't be.
No, you make a very good point. I think I had thought, if we could begin that community engagement process between now and the election, then by the time the election came around, we could say, and we think this is the direction we're going for development of that, if that affects your vote. But if we put this statement now and have to make the statement now and decide on the wording now, we're not going to have an opportunity to say two different things in two different places. So I think you make a very good point. City got in trouble in the past for saying things on something in the voters pamphlet that people felt was misleading. They didn't quite understand the meaning of it. So
I can say though that I believe the trust in government has improved since 2017. Every measure I've put forward has approved, whether it was the sale of surplus property on Clackamas Boulevard, the Rainy Collector site, the library, the fire levy, the police levy, the public works facility. So I think we've built trust. It's just that we need to make sure people understand there is no proposed use yet.
Right.
And we are going to engage professionals to help us with the education piece about what exactly they are voting on in May.
Councilor Blaug.
Do we have a cost estimate for what putting something like this on the ballot, and maybe inclusive and exclusive of public education?
So the county elections will probably charge us about $10,000 to put it on the ballot, and then another $10,000 for the public outreach. It will come from the community promotions business development line item, which we currently have funding for.
All right. Other questions, comments? Would anybody like to make a motion to take action? Oh, is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to speak to this particular agenda item?
I do not see any hands raised.
You don't see any hands raised on the online people either, and we had no one who asked in advance.
That is correct.
Okay, so there's no public comment for this.
Mayor Milch?
Yes,
City Attorney Jacobs has weighed in on Counselor Garlington's question.
okay, let's hear from him.
Okay. Chad, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, sorry I'm not on camera tonight, everybody. I'm out at an event and I have really bad cell reception, so I could only call in. To address Councilor Garlington's concerns, if you wanted to, you could amend the first sentence of that last paragraph to say, at the time of drafting, there were no specific redevelopment plans for the property. And then to stay within the word limits, you could delete the "the" at the beginning of the next sentence. So it would just start with city seeks voter approval. So I'll combine it with say, at the time of drafting, there were no specific redevelopment plans for the property. City seeks voter approval to allow for flexibility, ... And so that might address some of the concerns that you all were talking about previously.
Okay, Tammy, did you get that jotted down, that verbiage?
At the time of drafting, there were no specific development plans for the property. And then I didn't catch the second part.
He said delete the word "the" at the beginning of the next sentence, so it just says city seeks.
Perfect.
That would keep us within the limit. Yeah, I was wondering about something like that as of a certain date, but I think the time of drafting is, that's accurate.
Mayor Milch.
Yes.
So I don't want anybody here to think that I'm trying to manipulate the wording here. So I think that we should make sure that everybody would be okay with that because I'm not married to it one way or another after Administrator Betts had said that we probably wouldn't be talking to anyone anyway. So if everyone here on the dais thinks that that might be a little overkill, I completely understand that. And I don't want to, I don't want to, think that that's where we need to go.
All right. Well, I thought you raised a legitimate concern. And so, and I didn't think you were trying to push anything, but I'd like to hear it from other counselors too.
Thank you.
Counselor Roberts.
I think your concern was valid, but after listening to Administrator Betts' explanation, I think, in my opinion, we've taken care of that.
Okay.
I have a feeling that there might be, in fact, there already is some informal social media, not decision-making, but at least conversation about what the property should be. And we can't stop that, but we're not beholden to any of what's decided there by residents informally.
No, and I hope that they're also telling us how they'd like us to pay for that, what they are asking for too.
Yes, yeah. If we engage with anybody and they have really big plans.
So,
Yes, go ahead, Counselor.
so to be
Levant.
clear, we will not entertain whatever the wording is in the pamphlet. We're not going to entertain any ideas for that until it is approved by voters. So how do we actually manage that if a builder comes in like, hey, I've got this thing,
We've had that already and we've let them know, hey, we're going to have to take this to the voters. There is interest on that property. And it's just going to be up to us communicating that, I've also reached out to a commercial real estate broker to see if they want to give us an appraisal. And I've now told them we've got these stipulations in our charter that we need to get through first. And he's like, that's no problem. So that's kind of the communication that we'll need to have.
All right. Any more discussion? Councilor Huckabee.
Thank you. I don't feel the language needs to be changed either, but if you all decide it should, I don't care either.
All right. Would someone like to make a motion to amend the language per the recommendation of the city attorney? Okay, there's no motion to do that. We'll keep the language the way it is then. And now I would entertain a motion to approve the resolution.
I would make a motion that we approve resolution number 1241, a resolution submitting to the registered voters of the city a measure seeking voter authorization under Charter Section 42 for the potential sale or lease of the old library property.
Seconded.
All right, Counselor Roberts moved and Counselor Huckabee seconded Counselor, was it Mitchell? Oh, sorry, I was looking the other way. You have similar voices. Counselor Mitchell seconded the motion. Any further discussion? All right, Tammy, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Huckabee,
Yes.
Counselor Mitchell,
Yes.
Counselor Blau,
Yes.
Counselor Labonte,
Yes.
Counselor Roberts,
Yes.
Counselor Garlington,
Yes.
Mayor Milch.
Yes, motion passes 7-0. So staff, you have your instructions. And thank you again for the work that you did in preparing this. And now you said there's a period of time in which the public is notified of this and then can object to it. In the same conversation I had on social media today with a resident was talking about how the public finds out about some of these things. I know that we can post meeting agendas on Facebook because the city has a Facebook page. We don't post things on Nextdoor because we don't have access as a city to Nextdoor. And we don't have as easily available a public newspaper in Gladstone as we did when you could pick up a copy of the Milwaukee Review outside the post office. What will we be using in order to notify the public of this proposed ballot measure?
Well, we're going to use the Oregonian publication for the notice of this ballot measure. And then we're going to be using Consor, who helped us with the police and fire renewal, that will be helping us build website content, social media posts at certain times. We're going to be doing direct flyers, and Counselor Garlington probably is aware of this, but they have a machine through their printing company that they'll send it out to all the registered voters the first time. The second time, they only send it to those that have not voted yet. So they have the ability not to duplicate that there. So 2 postcard direct mailers, social media, website contact, and then flyers for that.
And to underscore something I said at the last meeting, the information that would go out is not to advocate for one position or the other, but the city can't do that with its city funds.
Correct.
What it would do is just say, be sure to vote. Let us know so we know what the will of the public is.
Yeah.
Vote one way or the other. And I imagine something like this on the ballot, it will be possible for members of the public to submit arguments in favor or arguments in opposition to a ballot measure as well. So we may have the public engaging on why it's important to do this or why it's important not to do it, depending on their views.
Sure. And everything has to be approved by the Secretary of State's office that we put out. So that's why it's important to have a professional firm help us with this.
All right. Very good. Well, thank you for that. There's nothing else tonight, so we are adjourned at 5:55 p.m.